And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Bros Network proudly brings to you some in-depth movie discussion with our resident film critic, Brandon Vick.
Happy evening, everyone. The Vick's Flicks podcast is here.
Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the Vick's Flicks podcast right here on Bros Network. Mine's right, ass is tight, as we got a hot new sequel to talk about. It's a sequel to a film that we've talked about, the original we talked about on this podcast 6 years ago, and now we are revisiting the property again. We're going to be talking about Joker, Folie, Deux. I think I got that right. I am your host for the show, the EIC at SoBrosNetwork.com, Big Natural Stoney Keeley. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley, collectively at Sobros Network, everywhere else. I keep forgetting that's not the case. I've actually redone TikTok and Instagram to be at Stoney Keeley, so I don't know why I keep saying that. But you guys can find me on the internet. I'm not that hard to find. That's my point. Joined, as usual, by the board member of Music City Film Critics Association, member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association. He is our resident film critic, Mr. Big Shot himself, Brandon Vick. Brandon, how you doing today, my man?
Oh, not too bad. I was thinking, who's that pretty gal who does our intro?
That's me.
Oh.
Also, I'm thrilled. It's befitting of you to show up to this podcast in clown makeup. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I've got my Lady Gaga wrap, too.
Did you do it yourself, or did someone else?
Can't you tell? Can't you tell?
That's what we should have done.
It's flour and magic marker.
Crayola.
I didn't think y'all would...
It looks great.
Figured y'all would appreciate it. Do you think it's better than my Magneto kickball helmet that I wore
an
X-Men movie?
That was pretty good. That was an all-timer.
Wasn't that one?
You were also Roger Klotz for Halloween one year, too.
Well, yeah, but I didn't go to the movies dressed like Roger Klotz.
Well, you're not at the movies now, dressed like Joker.
We're talking about the movies.
I was going to say the Doug movie hasn't come out, but it actually has, hasn't it?
Has it?
There's a Doug movie, right?
Oh, yeah. No,
yeah.
I think that's like a Disney.
Yeah,
Wasn't that just a Disney Channel thing?
Yeah.
Those don't count as real movies.
Yeah, we don't count those.
It didn't come into theaters.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Then hell no.
But when we get there, you will dress up.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
No, let's see, what's coming out? Well, I mean, I dressed up as Winona Ryder's character for Beetlejuice.
Really?
Yeah. Everyone was dressed as Beetlejuice, not me.
Yeah.
I thought that was stupid.
This was for Oppenheimer, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, yeah. I'd like to do what we call sneak previews.
You were dressed as Winona Ryder from Beetlejuice at Oppenheimer in July of 2023.
And what was weird is when I went to see Forrest Gump, I was dressed as Oppenheimer.
Oh, God.
So, figure that one out.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
And don't forget, I was also, I went to see, what was that, Vanilla Sky. I went to see that, and I was dressed as Mark Ruffalo from Poor Little Things.
Poor Things?
Poor Things.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Poor Little Things is actually a sequel.
Yeah.
It's coming. You'll be dressed from Poor Little Things soon.
I've officially ran this joke into the ground because I said Poor Little Things, which isn't that the... Yeah, forget it.
Isn't that the what?
Is that the Denzel Jared Leto movie? That's Small Little Things.
That's the Little Things.
Is it just the Little Things?
I think so.
I think it's...
This is great podcasting.
Is it? Yeah.
I feel like it's something else.
It is.
Than either one of those, but I don't remember exactly what it is.
I think it's small.
I'm going to look up the Little Things.
Crazy Little Things?
The Little Things, 2021 crime thriller. And that's the one with Jared Leto and Denzel Washington.
Oh, I thought...
You were right. I apologize.
I thought there was more to it. Boy, this is sad. I type in Poor Little Things, and the only thing that shows up is Poor Things. Anyway,
that's how you know you made something.
I was Mark Ruffalo from Poor Things when I went to see Vanilla Sky.
That's cool.
Yeah, I just...
That is that's some good foresight.
Yeah, I think my biggest claim to fame is dressed as Oppenheimer when I went to see Forrest Gump, because that was
Well, you were
who
like
could have
8
seen that
years old.
coming? Yeah, who could have seen that coming?
I mean,
But a big fan.
did people recognize that you were dressed as a character, or did they just think you had
No.
just gotten off of your business
Yeah,
trip?
no.
At 8
I
years
actually,
old.
yeah, they actually thought I was from the Untouchables.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you idiot. There's going to be a movie that's going to come out in about 20 years that Christopher Nolan, I don't even know if people knew who he was.
Yeah.
Because I dressed like
born?
him when I went to see the Ghostbusters. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been
you
doing
have.
it for a long time.
Oh,
But
man.
hey, happy to be here. Thanks for noticing my makeup.
That other voice that you hear, that's our buddy Brett. Brett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry if I spoke too soon.
No, you did not. We
Brett
always
thinks
do
there's
that.
etiquette here.
Yeah, there's really not. I mean, we literally sat down at the table, and as about 10 minutes before we started recording, I'm writing down notes for the show.
Right, yeah. And also, Brett can only hear us in one ear.
That is true.
So,
If I say some weird things, that's why. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how many people know this. We lived together for several years in college.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was a high level of etiquette then. So that's kind of what I'm basing this interaction off of right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
can I say before we get into the movie that
If
we
you're going
all
to bring
s-
up Shallow Hal, wait, we're going to do a podcast
No.
Okay.
I was just going to talk about how wonderful it was because we used to see movies all the time in high
Every
school
Friday
and
night.
college and then go to Applebee's. Unfortunately, Stoney picked TGI Fridays. when we
There's
went
not
to
an
see the new one.
Applebee's at Opry Mills anymore.
There's hardly anything at Opry Mills anymore.
That's true. There's Dave and
But
Buster's.
it was nice to see us three in a movie
It did,
theater
yeah.
together again. So I don't even know the last time that's happened.
It was great. It was like old times.
It was.
You know,
So it was nice.
It's funny. There's a saying that like eventually or one day you as a child you go out with your friends and you all go home that day not knowing that it's the last time you'll ever go outside and play again. And there was a moment for us where we all three went to a movie once, not knowing that it was the last time we'd go to the movies together until Joker Folie Deux.
That sounds like a movie I
Yeah.
recently saw.
Homeward Bound.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, funny enough, I was dressed like Emma Stone for Gorilla then, and later I had to explain it.
That feels insensitive
the
and
most-
inappropriate
yeah.
and homeward bound.
Yeah.
Well, we're
It felt
here.
right.
We're here now. We're reunited. Brandon, what have you been watching lately? We're going to talk about Joker in a bit, but what else have you caught?
Yeah, we should have told Brett. We usually talk about 45 minutes before we actually get to what someone is probably wanting to hear from the first
That's
5
great.
minutes. I've seen Transformers 1, which is probably the best Transformers movie I've seen in a very long time. It's right up
Stoked.
there with the first live action one and Bumblebee, because I really enjoyed the
Bumblebee.
80s of Bumblebee. I saw, I feel like there's something else. I recently saw My Old Ass.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
movie.
I'm so well. You went you went back to back. You had a double header because you saw that right
Yeah.
before we went to see Joker Folie Deux.
It's only like an hour and 20-something minutes, but
Yeah.
it's really funny and it's heartwarming. Kind of what you were saying about us and our reunion at the movies is it's a lot about time and kind of cherishing it when things were easy because you don't realize it until you get older how really free and not stressed you were, and when was the last time that you went outside to play and knew that that was going to be the last time, which you don't. You don't think about that stuff.
Are you crying?
Yeah, I am. And some of the flower makeup got in my eye.
Okay. That screened at the Nashville Film Festival, too. We just didn't get
Which
to go
we didn't
see it
get to
because
see.
it ran head-to-head with Saturday Night. And, buddy, we couldn't miss Saturday
And
night.
Saturday night, that was
Which
a treat.
We
That
talked
was a
about.
treat.
We talked about on the last episode.
Yep. I've actually saw, there is this, I'm going to give a shout out to this foreign film. It's called Sleep.
Okay.
And I think it's Korean. But it's not a scary movie, but it's kind of terrifying because it's about a guy that sleepwalks. And he doesn't remember what he's doing, but it's not like the sleepwalking we saw in Step Brothers. It's a lot more deranged. And so his wife, and they have a newborn. She's worried that he's going to do something to their newborn, so she never sleeps. And the mental toll that it takes, and the story that kind of follows that, it was quite unique, but it was actually really interesting. And I think it's on like video on demand where you can rent it, but it's actually good. Again, it's not like scary, but it's very tense, and without giving anything away, it is kind of cool on the direction it takes as still sort of like a ghost story. So
I feel like I've heard some hype around that.
Yeah, it's gotten a few things around social media, but it's worth checking out. One that I think a lot of people probably have no idea about.
Something that people listening won't know is I'm a Quaker, so if we could not talk about social media.
That's
I would
right.
appreciate
That's
it.
right. That's right. But you do love Letterboxd.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
but it's actually a physical letterbox that I fill out after I've seen a movie.
Oh, and you take pictures on Polaroids and post them.
Correct. Mail them.
Mail them.
Yes.
Mail them on envelopes like the Riddler.
Yes, I mail them and I mail them to like one friend or loved one, ask them to pass it on to the next one.
Say, hey, my new rating's out. In 5 days, go to the mailbox.
Correct. Yes, that's
this
right.
out.
Yes, that's it.
Well, this podcast is going to blow your mind.
Brett, what have you been watching recently? Seen anything new?
I also saw Transformers 1. I took my two boys. I have sons that are 6 and 9.
Oh, how cool is that? Like,
They enjoyed it a lot.
yeah.
Wilder, my oldest son, is really he is into movies. Like he really likes going with me, and that's a cool thing that we share. Rhodes will often stand up and walk around during a movie.
Gotcha.
And he didn't during this one. So I think for him, like that's the highest rating he can give a movie is that he sat through it.
Now, would you say Wilder loves movies more than he loves... I know he doesn't curse, but he loves curse words.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because their favorite part of the movie was Keegan-Michael Key's character, which is Bumblebee.
Yep.
Gives himself the nickname Badassatron. And they said it enough that my kids could memorize it.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
They really do.
They
it's
drive
a joke
it
they
home.
come back to. Yeah.
They drive. I mean,
Yeah.
the movie could have almost been called that because
Yeah.
they say it that many times.
Yeah.
And
He's hilarious in that movie.
he is. My kids did not forget. They,
Yeah,
they
well-
loved that part, and they
Very well.
really wanted to tell my wife about it when we got home, and so yeah,
Super pumped.
But I agree, it was better than I expected. When I first saw the previews for it, I was not excited about it, but it was better than I expected.
And I just saw The Wild Robot.
How was it?
I really liked it. It's one of DreamWorks' top tier
Really?
movies.
Man, I want to see it.
And what it has about just in overall themes of just like with nature and kindness, but the animation is wonderful, and the story is it's really heart-rendering the way that they do it. I was really impressed. It delivered nicely. So, and Lupita Nyong'o is the main voice for that, but Bill Nye's in it. He voices the character.
Fantastic.
He voices one. Catherine O'Hara.
Bill Nye the Science Guy?
No. And then I can't remember who voiced the fox, but Pedro Pascal. So, but yeah, I highly recommend it. Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot, and I saw a movie at the film festival called Memoir of a Snail. Is it getting some run? It's been spectacular stuff when it comes to animated movies.
Yeah.
And those three are not just, but some of the best movies, period, at the of this year. What's
next on the list for you, Brandon? What's coming up that you're gonna hit?
I'm gonna probably go start seeing some spooky stuff.
Yeah.
There's
'tis the
plans to
season.
do something for Terrifier 3. If I don't puke.
Ooh, yeah. Rough.
Did you puke in the first two?
So Terrifier 3 is going to be the first Terrifier movie I see in theaters. I watched the other two at home, and I mainly just sat on the toilet and just watched them just in case if something happened.
I was going to ask, so you could puke.
Yeah,
got
yeah.
it.
Out what end I didn't know. That's why I had to stay around the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, we're trying to do something with our friends Brittany and Jesse, and then Smile 2.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't
Yeah.
the Smile wasn't a bad movie. So I don't know. There's a movie and it comes out Friday, and I think it's only playing a couple of places here in Nashville, but it's called Monster Summer, and it has which I'm shocked that he's not the first name on the poster because he's not controversial at all, but Mel Gibson's in it.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's a big
and-
movie star.
Yeah, and but it's like it's like this summer, like where the kids go and find out something in their neighborhood. I mean, I guess because it's October, I'd like to just see it because it sounds spooky. But there's also a movie which is playing at the Belcourt with Sebastian Stan called A Different Man. That's gotten great reviews and stuff. So I'm going to try and see those throughout. And, just for shits and giggles, I'll go see the last Venom movie too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one, but it's coming out, and that's as far as I'm willing to go with it. It's definitely coming out.
I remember when I went to see You've Got Mail and I was dressed as Woody Harrelson's Carnage. And when that finally came out, I was disappointed. So the second one wasn't great.
Yeah, I didn't like I didn't like the second
and
one.
I don't even know who the villain is in this last one. I don't even really care.
Yeah, beats me.
It's really just about Tom Hardy.
Yeah. Brett, you got anything coming out in theaters soon you're dying to get to?
I'm sure that I will go to some of the bigger new releases that are coming out, but the Belcourt locally is doing Shocktober.
Oh,
And,
Oh, yeah.
and they're showing a bunch of older things. We were talking about this a little bit the other day. They're showing... so recently, I've been on this journey of revisiting movies that I've missed from the past, things that are kind of classics and that kind of thing. And so they did a thing this summer from 1999. I went and saw several of those. And so this feels like a similar opportunity, but they're showing...
And you wrote about that. It's on SoBrosNetwork.com.
Yes. And they're showing Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
I still haven't seen that one.
I've never seen it, so I'm interested in going.
I am too.
My wife loves Practical Magic. They're showing Practical Magic. I've not seen it.
That's in 35 millimeter.
Yes.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
You're not joshing me right now.
No, look on their website. It's true.
Oh.
And Snoop Dogg's Bones.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Carrie. I've never seen Carrie. They're showing Carrie. Have you seen it, Stoney?
I have not, no.
Have you seen it? You have,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yeah.
Okay.
There's one that has I can never pronounce her name right, but she was in Kick-Ass, the blonde-haired Moretz, Chloe.
Chloe Grace Moretz?
Yeah,
Yes.
she that name sounds a lot easier to pronounce than I remember. They did one where Julia Moore played her mother.
Like a remake?
So there's that Carrie,
Okay.
but
This
you
is
need to see
Sissy
Sissy
Spacek.
Spacek. Yeah, that's the one to see.
Yep. Yeah, and I feel like there were a couple. Oh, we talked about there's an older movie called Peeping Tom.
Yeah.
That's
I would kind of like to go see that one.
I've never even heard of this.
I haven't either.
I hadn't until
from
recently.
The 60s, maybe.
Yes, it's several decades old.
I remember people used to call you that in college, Peeping Tom.
It was my nickname.
Yeah, but never heard of the movie. But yeah, I like when they do stuff like that. They recently did one Francis Ford Coppola, which I know you didn't get to see, but they were doing like the Godfather movies and one that I can't recommend enough, The Conversation with Gene Hackman. But I think they did Bram Stoker's Dracula too.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
sick.
So,
Yeah. I guess we should talk about Joker, Folie, Deux.
oh shit, I thought that
I
was
really
another.
like the pronunciation
Yeah.
there.
I
thought that
looked
was
it
gonna
up
be
on
another episode.
I Googled it because I didn't know.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what does it mean?
Madness Between Two.
Madness for two.
Madness
Or,
for Two.
and there's something about
Mary?
transmission from one
From one to
from
another.
one to another.
Yeah. Okay.
Which after you see the movie, I mean, It makes sense. It's open for interpretation.
So I think we've decided after we saw this movie, we were going to try and talk about this in a way that is spoiler free.
Yeah.
I think it will be difficult to do at moments, but
Yes.
we'll give you a warning before then. In any case, I think it's probably best to see the movie before listening to the podcast episode. Regardless, then I think a lot of what we'll talk about will hit home a little harder. It'll make a little more sense, so to speak, once you've seen the movie. But I don't know where you guys want to start with this. I think for me, there was a lot of sitting around in a jail cell. There was a lot of sitting around in a courtroom. Nothing ever happened. I think
There's some singing.
there were some risks taken, and I think I can certainly appreciate the film's cinematography. I love the smoky bars, and the musical scenes I thought were pretty good. And I'm not usually a musicals guy, but I thought this one was pretty effective. But I think we had trouble getting to where we were going, and I think that Todd Phillips and company had a pretty good little nugget on their hands that they just it kind of unraveled when we actually got to the screen. And ultimately, I think this was a pretty boring film for me. So, Brandon, what do you think? High level overview as we dig into it.
I agree. I think we talked about. I thought Phoenix and Gaga were great. I don't think Phoenix lost a step.
No.
A lot of striking imagery. I think the cinematography was sensational.
Yeah.
I thought the score was fantastic. I think it really adds to the film, and especially I think in its stronger moments, I think the score absolutely assists with that. I had retweeted something the other day, and this is on Twitter, but it's at Connor Movies. And when I read this, I thought this was at least my initial reaction after seeing this film is that it's masterful, he says, and I agree, masterful on a technical level, but disappointing on a storytelling front. Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga shine, and the big swings taken are admirable, even if they don't all pay off. Conflicted on a lot of things, including the musical segments and ending. And then he says it's a mixed bag. And I took the words right out of my mouth. I think there's a lot of things I appreciate. I think there's a lot of things you can applaud. I think there's a lot of things you can respect about it. But the storytelling aspect of it is a bit of a mess. And I think the first hour is the most intriguing. I think it's the most consuming. But I also think that's where it peaks.
Yeah.
Because then we take the next hour and 15 minutes or so, and we don't really, story-wise, we don't do anything with it. And I think I kind of fall. Now, it's been, a day and a half, couple days almost. This movie really, at the end of the day, just kind of feels unnecessary. I don't think we got anything out of it that we didn't already understand, appreciate, enjoy from the first one.
Yeah. And it's strange because you can scroll through the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes where this film currently with 65 reviews has a 54% on the tomato meter, which is not great. Not great, guys. And it seems like the consensus for this film, there's an awful lot of people that say the same stuff. It's like, hey, we can appreciate the swing that Todd Phillips takes with this film, but it just doesn't really land. There's a sort of emotionless aspect of the storytelling that kind of makes it hard to really find anything there to latch onto. It feels like what I said was just a lot of sitting in a jail cell and a lot of sitting in a courtroom.
Well, and a lot of just kind of fantasy, which is what leads to a lot of these, musical segments, which I liked, but even some of that started to become repetitive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things just in the film itself that's repetitive. And like I said, after that first hour and you start to realize nothing's really happening, it
Yeah.
becomes like, and especially for a film like this and coming off of the original, to feel that kind of numb or lifeless is disappointing. I don't
It's
care.
pretty surprising.
I don't care how everything, there's a lot of strong technical stuff involved, but I mean, yeah, I guess maybe that's it. Maybe it's more surprising. I like that they went a different way with this sequel, but I just don't think we really explored anything that hasn't already been done. And I was telling you guys before we started recording, basically someone was like, and I forgot where I read it, I'm sure it's on social media somewhere, but that basically this is like everyone sitting around a courtroom discussing the first movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, that's what I'm like, then what was, ultimately what was the point?
It's a lot of rehashing, playing the greatest hits from Joker from 6 years ago. And if you're going to tell this story as we're going to dig into this character a little bit more, I think you have to do a little more from a storytelling aspect to kick over new rocks and present new revelations to us instead of just reliving the greatest hits. If
you're going to add a love interest to try to make this some kind of rom-com in the process, it didn't work on screen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of stuff also felt very restrained.
Yeah.
There was a point where you kind of need somebody to kind of let loose.
Mm-hmm.
And it never comes. You think it is, and you're excited until you realize it ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
Brett, zoom out, 10,000 foot view. What were your thoughts on this movie?
You guys have said a lot of it. What's funny is we came out, I think, maybe in different places, and I feel like a couple days later, we're probably in a pretty similar place. I mean, Brandon said this. It kind of runs, the plane runs past the runway in this instance.
2 hours and 18 minutes, by the way.
It's
a
too long.
Film.
It is too long. I mean, the first one, which the three of us agree is a great movie.
A very tense movie,
is
too.
2 hours flat.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's the thing that you just said it, Brandon. I was mesmerized for the first hour. I mean, I was all in. It's hard for me to say that I completely disliked the movie because of the performances, because of the shots that they took to do something completely different than what we're seeing in a lot of movies. I liked all of that. I appreciate all of that, and so I'm going to give it a fairly good, rating based on those things alone. I mean, I was thinking this at the beginning. I am like enthralled watching Joaquin Phoenix tighten his pants at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Just his mannerisms, his gestures. It's unbelievable, and he's great. I thought Lady Gaga was blow for blow with him, just as good.
I agree, and she is. And it goes back to what we were talking about, and kind of the last stretch of it is, it's almost like she becomes just a part of the background, and that's not. I mean, how can you have someone like this, and then all of a sudden, she's not in the forefront? She's not sharing the spot. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at the last stretch.
I wasn't as big of a fan of hers as you guys were. I kind of felt like she was a little underutilized. I mean, this is one of the most talented people in the world, and I felt like she played Harley Quinn kind of to one note, to one speed, and I kept waiting for them to really dial it up with her and for her to just go completely over the edge with the character. And I don't think we ever really saw that. They teased it. It's like Todd Phillips is like towing right up to the line, but never stepping over it with her. And I just thought, like, this is an insanely talented woman. You could have really gone unhinged with this character. And I think, to your point, Brandon, I think a lot of the reason that I felt that way is because they start her off as this meek patient in the prison. I'm just realizing I said no spoilers, and I'm going deep into spoilers. But
well, that's not.
Everybody knows that. Yeah, that's in the trailer.
Fair enough. So she starts there, and it feels like it's going to be a gradual build, but by the time we get to the movie's climax, she's just sitting in a courtroom for most of the time. And
Yeah.
I came away from the film thinking like she could have really belted something out with this character, and it felt like they kind of played it a little safe. And I don't know if it was a choice made. Like, we can't have this character overshadowing. It's still a film about Joker. It's still a film about Arthur Fleck, right? Like, we can't. She still needs to be in a supporting role and not stealing the show. I don't know if it was that sort of deal or what, but I felt like they could have really pushed the envelope with that character a little more than they did. And by the time we got to the end, I was just like, man, did you just hire her because she's a really good singer and you wanted somebody that could sing to hit those musical scenes? Because it could have been a little more, in my opinion.
I feel like this is the movie equivalent of Blue Balls.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
You know, you're almost there, and then right when you think your toothpaste is going all over your jeans, it goes limp.
It goes limp.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly.
Because you know
what
what you're talking about, Lady Gaga. That
happens
really
all the time.
That really happens with Arthur Fleck too.
Yeah.
Like, now listen, he had a whole movie, so it's not like we need. But they're trying to get more into his psyche and kind of deciding who he is. And I kind of liked that angle of it. But again, it seems like the whole momentum and everything just stops. And then we go out on a whimper. Like, we were going to give you, it's almost like they're kind of gaslighting you. Like, you just want to do this. No.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Brent.
Maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the ultimate joke. I don't know.
We'll get to that. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I've been thinking about this since we saw the movie. My hot take is it would have been a much better movie if it was a Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah.
If it was all about that character. And part of that is I rewatched the original, and everything about him is unearthed in the first one.
Yeah.
And it goes deep. And that's why we liked it so much. But in this one, there's not a lot new to develop about him. And so you're just, what you guys have said, you're just kind of reverberating these ideas. I mean, you know, the question in this situation is always, is it going to be a movie that kind of stands on its own and that you could tell somebody it doesn't really matter if you've seen the first one or not? Yeah. This is very much in conversation with the first movie. You need to know the events of the first movie to be able to follow what's going on here. And I think it would have been so much better if it would have been a movie about her and if he would have been more in the background, as he already stands kind of as this colossal figure, and they don't do anything else to develop that, so why not let him be kind of that other player?
That's very true. You could still have the events unfold, but they can do that around her.
Yes. More
so than stick with him where he's not going anywhere.
Well, and it's what you said, Stoney. They wasted potential with her. I mean, she is amazing in the musical scenes, but she's also great in the acting scenes, I thought. Yeah. And they didn't. I mean, a lot of what's good about her in the beginning that kind of drew me in is she's very subtle, but then it kind of shifts and things change and aren't as they seem as the movie goes on, and it just feels like they could have done a lot more there.
Her appearance starts to change. That's what I mean. It seems like we're going in an exciting direction, and we just don't get there. But again, I think maybe some of it's intentional. However, whether it is or isn't, it doesn't deliver. And even if your expectations, I think all of our expectations weren't as high as it was for the first one, because first one was my favorite movie of that year. And I think it's one of the best performances ever. And Joaquin owns every bit of it. And the performances aren't, like we've said, it's not the problem here. But to have all of these tools to make something that I just don't think it added any value to any one of the characters. Either you're Harley Quinn and you're not getting enough attention, or you're Arthur Fleck Joker and you're getting all the attention, but everybody's watching you and you're not really doing anything. I mean, everything. I mean, I feel like they knew the sequel was going to be a risk, no matter what. I mean, you don't make a rated R over $1 billion, make over $1 billion, and then say, okay, we're going to do another one. How do we do it? I almost kind of feel like the ingredients were there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm totally fine with how we're doing this to kind of complete whatever Arthur Fleck's arc is.
Yes.
But then it's like, well, actually, I was fine with the first one.
Yeah.
That's actually all I
Yeah.
needed. I didn't need another character to come in because it didn't do it justice. It didn't do her justice.
Well, and I'll say I left thinking he was just as good as he is in the first one. And part of that is he's great in everything that he does.
When he does it, it's about as committed as can be.
But leaving there, watching the first one again, I realized he kind of plays it safe in the second one comparatively. There's so much in that first one that he does. And it's all, as I said, it's all established. So he just kind of sits on that for 2 hours in this one.
I was going to say, I think from his appearance to kind of his mannerisms to his laugh, it's all way more shocking.
Yes.
When you're introduced to him in the first movie.
It's haunting in the first movie.
and
And in this one, it's almost... I mean, people were laughing in the movie in parts that I don't think were meant to be funny necessarily.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple of times that it kind of felt like a caricature of the original Joker, and kind of a wink and a nod, like, "Hey, this one's not as serious." But how much do you think that the way that he played Joker and hearing that laugh for the first time in the first movie and seeing how far he was willing to go, that sort of thing, how much of the shine just wears off once you've seen it once and you don't have those same types of moments in this film? How much of that do you think impacts your enjoyment of this film?
I don't think it affects it as much as I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the flaws come from the story.
Yeah.
I'm not so caught up on performances, and even depending on if he is kind of slipping into it but not maybe going as not digging in deep like he did in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I think they both do a great job. It's the story that they're trying to tell that also, I think, in a way, just from what we've been discussing, it does kind of put a damper on their performances because it looks like no one's really doing much, even though I would argue I'm sure they are. It just doesn't come across that way, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I think you could have had the exact same performances with a better story and had a really good, if not great, movie.
Mm. You mentioned, danced around an interesting idea, Brandon, earlier, and I kind of want to talk about this because I think there is potential there. At least you can see a sort of vision for this, but there's a lot of Arthur Fleck in this film, and we kind of build to a point where he finally becomes Joker. And here's where I will say spoiler warning as we talk about this, but most of what we see from Joker early on in the film is through the musical scores and reliving the first film. And then once he finally becomes Joker, it's in the courtroom and things kind of go off the rails from there. But I think there is this interesting interpretation of this film where Todd Phillips is showing Arthur Fleck, the man, what his day-to-day life is like in prison, what he's gone through. We're reliving all of this trauma, and people just don't really care. You know, it's all about Joker. The people that are protesting the trial, that are supporting him, they're outside holding signs of Joker. They're in these masks. And even with Harley Quinn, she talks about Joker and this movement and all this stuff. And there's not a whole lot about Arthur Fleck. And while he's not somebody that you specifically root for, but they do a decent job of showing him as a troubled man that's kind of struggling alone. And I felt like there was a certain sense of loneliness in Arthur Fleck in this film that I don't know if we necessarily saw it the same way in the first film. It was an interesting layer there. But I think ultimately we don't get a lot of Joker. And I think that could be, at least in this interpretation, the point is that they're pointing the finger at us sitting in the theaters watching the film. You don't care about Arthur Fleck either. You just want Joker. And we never really get it. And ultimately the film ends the way that it ends. And we go home feeling a little like, oh man, like where was that really going? To that point, as a creative decision, as an interpretation of this film, how do you think that theory holds up? Brandon, we'll start with you.
It makes me appreciate it more.
And I think this is too part of the conversation where we talk about, hey, this is a risk with this film. You do it this way, you've got to know, at least on some level, it's not going to be what people are expecting when you say Harley Quinn, musical, more Joaquin Phoenix as Joker.
I feel like Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix, I feel like during the making of this that they got off on depriving the audience of we are not getting what we got 5 or 6 years ago, whenever.
Yeah.
And because of Joaquin Phoenix doing a sequel, I feel like I'm sure that idea was there.
Well, yeah.
I am not going to do the same movie again.
Yeah. And I told you guys before we started recording, like the way I looked at it was like, this probably sounded awesome when they sat down at the table to hash this all out. And then when we got to the execution of it, I don't know.
Hey, listen, Todd Phillips, Joaquin, and all of them could still be laughing after they showed it, because maybe that is what they wanted. We're going to give them a musical. We're going to give them this. Then we got a little courtroom drama. But to the point of kind of turning the mirror on us and being like, you're just like you're just like everybody here.
Exactly.
You don't care about this man. You want his, you want the flashier. You want the, you kind of, I kind of feel like it's what society does. It is.
Yeah.
It's like going up to a celebrity, but you want them to be who you think they should be, or you think like, a wrestler that, you want Mark Calloway to be the Undertaker, and you only want the Undertaker.
Yeah.
So, so it does kind of give you more, I think, of a perspective on that, because if that's not the point, I'll be shocked, because I do feel like I think that was probably in their mind of that, because of the Joker we got, it's not the Joker we have here. But it does kind of prove the point.
That's what I'm saying.
It does prove the point
effective
of what they're trying to get across.
If that's the intention, it is turning the mirror on us and saying, "Look, you guys want this, and
you can't have it."
What does it say about you that you want this too? I think movies that do that are generally pretty interesting, and I just. It makes me like the film more to think about it through that lens, to see it through that lens.
I agree.
But I still can't forget sitting in those uncomfortable IMAX seats that kept reclining without my intending them to recline.
Half recliners,
and my back hurting for 2.5 hours, thinking I just want to go home and go to bed.
Yeah,
I don't like it that much.
I still think, there is. You're still asking, I think, to forgive quite a bit. The story, even with all of this stuff in mind. But I do agree. I do think I think it all comes down to just the way it's handled. Like I said, I think the tools are there, but once it's all done and assembled, it's kind of like, well, I think, I mean, obviously, I mean, in retrospect, you can always think, oh, you know, I mean, we still could have gotten to where the film ends, but I think we definitely could have gone down a different path. At least a more, I mean, to me, just a more entertaining, but just kind of a more interesting way. Like, I don't think, because a lot of it did come across as just kind of mind-numbing or redundant stuff. And I think that's obviously stuff they could have, I would think, could have avoided.
Yeah.
But the kind of, like you said, pointing the finger at us, I mean, it does hit. It does, that does leave a mark when you think back on it and think, well, they're not wrong.
Yeah. Brett, your thoughts on this interpretation of what we saw?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I actually like that. I prefer to believe that over it was directionless at a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, you were
makes
talking
sense.
about you're waiting for this moment, you're waiting, and there were a couple things that were like, oh, here's something, and then it was like, oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And if that was intentional, I respect that a lot more than just we had everybody here and knew we had to make a movie and didn't really know where to go with it, which is kind of how it felt at times.
Yeah.
Except for it's just we know it's going to be successful because the first one was. And
Yeah. I do wonder, and I didn't read the whole story, but I don't know if it's an interview or on a talk show, but Lady Gaga talked about how there were times, like before they would shoot a scene, Joaquin would pull her and Todd Phillips into his trailer and basically rewrite stuff. So I'm also curious as to what was the film before it got into the actual creative process, and Joaquin and everybody kind of started adding things. Now, I think her ultimate thing was like, you know, it was very liberating and being the creative and stuff. But the thing is, was it for the better? Like, did it totally change the thing? Which I'm assuming not, but I mean, you never know. You know, I mean, and also some of the stuff that we could grab onto that, you know, that we did, you know, we were kind of immersed into, maybe that was done on the day of.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm always curious about when all these changes happen, but I mean, you know, the final product is the final product and everybody's name's on it, and, you know, it is what it is.
You called it blue balls. I felt like I had a carrot dangled in front of me for 2.5 hours and never got that carrot. But the more I sat on it,
On the carrot?
On the carrot,
Oh.
yes. The more we talked about it, I grew to appreciate the effort a little bit more. But I will say that you sharing that story doesn't surprise me at all. Like, this film kind of seems like it reeks of let's just go for it.
Now, granted,
let's just do it.
I did not read the whole thing, so I don't know if any like even major changes were done. But I mean, almost from early on when Todd Phillips was teasing, like sending pictures of the script, I mean, the musical thing and all of that was, I mean, that was the point. I mean, that's what they wanted to do. And again, all the power to him for just being like, you know what, I have all this money and I'm going to do something totally different. And but I also feel like at a point was like, did they want to disappoint everyone because they knew they're not making another one? So they're like, this is what we'll do, and whatever you liked about that one, don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which in a
And they're
way,
laughing all the way to the bank.
in a way, I kind
deal.
of respect it, but at the same
That's
time,
what I'm saying. It's conflicting.
yeah,
Because you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I wasted a Monday
Well-
evening, but then you start thinking about it a couple days later, and it's like, man, that's kind of ballsy.
it's
That's
like
kind of
go ahead, sorry.
badass.
Yeah, well, it's like what Brett said. Like, it's not that I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it could have been something more. And I feel like when you have this opportunity, it no matter what intentions were, no matter what rewrites happen, it's a missed opportunity somewhere along the line. It's not that they got it all wrong, but it's also not that everything clicked together. and it's not at the end of the day, it's really for everything that we've talked about that we like, we respect, we applaud. It's still, in some weird way, it's tough to still justify its existence.
Yeah.
If that makes
that's
sense.
fair.
Like, I'm not mad that I saw it. I just don't know why everyone thought they had to get back together to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're laughing at us. That's what it is.
I guess so.
Yeah. When it was announced, however long ago, that this was going to be a musical, and to some degree, whatever it was, we didn't know, early on. In my Quaker community,
Right.
there were a lot of, I don't even know if Quaker people
Like
embrace
social media?
technology or not.
Yeah.
So my apologies to the members of your audience that are Quaker if I'm making a caricature of something here.
I don't have the numbers on those demographics.
Well, sorry for my digression there about the Quaker members of the audience. But, there were a lot of jokes when this was announced that it was going to be a musical about the aspect of it being a musical. And I think we all feel like, and I think most people probably feel this way going in at this point, it's not a bad movie because they chose to make it a musical. Like,
Yeah.
that all fits.
Yeah.
That part's actually one of the best parts of the movie.
I agree.
I think, in fact, we talked about this some after. Part of the problem is they do a little bit too much of that in that, and I mean, is it an overstatement to say there's 8 or 10 songs in musical numbers?
I think you're right, but I also feel like they sing some of the ones over and over, so I'm not sure. But I mean, I'd say it's at least that many. I just feel like some of it, I think they sing. I feel like there's at least 2 songs that are kind of, even if it's not a full like musical sequence, it's still sang a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't like full on song
Right.
and dance, but they're in a scene singing
A few bars or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've had "Come On, Get Happy," "Who's Ready for the Judgment Day" stuck in my head since that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
But I think they could have used a little bit of the philosophy with a horror movie of you show the villain less and it's more scary than
Yeah.
we see it over. Selective use, I think, would have been a little bit more effective because, as we said, for the first hour or so, it was like, this is great. I love what they're doing with this. And then it was like, oh, we're singing again after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also wasn't really bothered by it. Besides, like I said, I feel like it started to get repetitive, or at least like give me a new song or something. But I get that, like, okay, that's his escape. I understand. He, she's making a difference and wants to, trying to find what, was beaten out of him. But yeah, I kind of agree where, I think it would have been more impactful if it was done a little less, but also kind of like, okay, we did this song, we're going to move on to this one, because a lot of times it felt like for the first bit, it's kind of pushing the narrative along this, but then it kind of, again, I feel like along with everything else, the songs and stuff we're all in standstill. Like it's like, okay, we've either heard it or I think we've been here before, stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say, to play devil's advocate, there could be some intention in that. And the reason I say that, revisiting the first one, the "That's Life" song, that's the end of the Murray Franklin show. I mean, they play that probably 4 or 5 times as kind of this ironic. It's at the very end of the movie,
Yep.
when he says to the lady in the asylum, he starts laughing. She says, "What are you laughing at?" He says a joke, and he says, "You wouldn't get it." The music starts playing again then.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if there's some intention there of we're using these songs over and over for this specific purpose.
I wouldn't put it past them, but I think it kind of goes back to where it's that they wasn't nearly as effective as that song in that first
correct.
film.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, folks, that is all I have on my notes, which means it's time to rate the film. I land at a 2 out of 5 for me. Brandon, what do you have? And any final thoughts on the film that you might have?
I think there's a lot that works. I do. But I think that I think some of the issues are quite substantial to enjoying it overall. Certainly doesn't reach the level of the first one, but I don't really think that's going to shock too many people.
Sure.
Just in general. I kind of set with a 2.5, but after, like I said, about a day and a half, and after with us about pointing the finger at us and kind of really kind of sticking some of these kind of overall themes of what it's trying to do, I think I can land on a 3. I think I can do a 3 out of 5 overall.
Brett?
So I came out of the movie thinking 3.5. And I really wanted to be, while watching the movie, I really wanted to be pushed over into a 4. Like, I was hoping for it. And I liked it a lot. I wanted to love it. For me, a lot of it is about the ambition and that you just gave it a shot. And so I respect that. The idea of it being kind of a joke on the viewer, I do appreciate that a lot.
Agreed.
I feel like to some degree, the reason that I can't say that I didn't like it was the same reason that I go see every M. Night movie that comes out. He's going to take a shot, and it's not always going to land, but it's going to be different. It's going to be ambitious, and that's what I really liked about this. It was, as we've said several times, my biggest disappointment is in the lack of use of what they had in Lady Gaga.
Yeah. So where does that put it for you?
Yeah, where'd you?
Yes, I think I'm still sticking with the 3.5. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
3.5.
because I revisited the first one, and the first one kind of highlights how deep they went with character development and how shallow this one is in some of those ways when you compare the two back to back. And that kind of brought me down on this one some. But I think because of the ambition, because of the idea that potentially there's more there than meets the eye initially,
Yeah.
I probably stick with a 3.5.
Do you remember what you gave
3.5.
Joker?
Initially,
first?
I gave it a 4, which by my scale, the way I think about things, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Rewatching it, I might give it a 4.5. Like it is undoubtedly a better movie. Like there's no comparison. There's a big gap between the two.
I was just know if what kind of fall it had, because mine, like I said, it was my favorite of the year, so that was a 5 out of 5, and so it dropped to a 3, which again is not an awful score, and I think we all could agree it could have been much more of a disaster. I mean, there is, Stoney may not agree. He gave it a 2, but you like Joker, right?
Yeah, Joker it's 4.5 or 5.
Yeah. Okay.
for
All right. That's
me,
what I thought.
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it all took a dip.
This is a bit of a fringe thing, but I think it matters because I was reminded of it about the first one. First one comes out in 2019. There's this theme of like the overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
That's the political landscape that we're in now, but that's the political landscape we were really in then too. And I feel like it just kind of hit this thing of like you're digging into kind of the psyche of the world and the landscape we're in right now in an indirect way, but in a way that's really effective. And it was disappointing. There was kind of none of that in this one.
Oh, it's kind of funny when we talk about all these big swings and all these risks and ambition and how bold it is in certain elements and elements of it, but it does, because of the bar that Joker set, they are still kind of playing it safe in a strange way.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Well, that's a good spot to end on, unless you guys have anything else to add. Good to go? Good to roll?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I can't believe your makeup held up for the entire
Ain't
podcast,
that the
Brandon.
truth?
It actually got better as the episode
Oh.
went
Is that
on.
blood in it?
Huh?
Is that blood in it?
No. These are smushed raspberries.
I think. Well,
Oh,
I think
we
it
did
may
take a
be.
bathroom
You may
break.
need to go look in the mirror. I think it may
Oh.
actually. Be.
Oh, well now that some fell on my lip and tongue, maybe it is. But is it my blood?
Ooh.
Ooh. Spooky season. Spooky season.
Yeah, there's only 2 of us in this office, and neither of us are bleeding, so need to check on my cat as soon as possible.
I feel lightheaded.
Brett, where can our listeners
That's live.
find you on social media these days?
I would love for you.
He ain't got it.
I would love for you to become. That's right. In the Quaker community, I would love for you to become my 7th follower on Letterboxd.
All right.
You can find me there at. I don't even know how to find my own. You can find me there at BR McIntosh. That's MCINTOSH. No A.
Brandon?
At Sir Brandon V on Twitter and Sir Brandon on Letterboxd.
And I'm at Stoney Keeley on Twitter and TikTok, at Stoney Keeley 615 on Instagram, at Sobros Network everywhere else. All of our work is up at sobrosnetwork.com. All of our merch, nope, we don't have sobrosshop.com up right now. That's my bad. We're undergoing some maintenance, some changes happening around here. I'll let you guys know when that is done. Rate, review, subscribe to the Vicks Flicks podcast wherever you take in your podcast. We're out in these internet streets, baby. We ain't too hard to find. That's going to do it for another episode. For Brett, for Brandon, I'm Stoney, and until next time, you stay classy, moviegoers.